Good evening and welcome to our program on Voices from Siberia. I'm Todd Lefko and I'm chairman of the Russian American Business and Culture Council. I'd like to thank our sponsors, which is RABCC, the Museum of Russian Art, Siberian Bridges, American Siberian Educational Foundation, the Committee on Foreign Relations, and Global Minnesota. We're pleased to have our moderators here, Bernadine Joselyn, former US diplomat in Moscow who happily and thankfully returned to Minnesota, and we're so happy she's here. And Chad Gehrman, who has worked in Siberia and was one of the American business people that basically was the model for what a good business person who had ethics and truly cared about the Russian economy would be. We have our honored guests that Bernadine and Chad will introduce, but first there's a short clip. And so from the Altai Republic of Monjarok, here's a short clip to show you the area.
Это фильм «Ваш сын».
Здравствуй, матушка Катунь. А ну, Шурупчик, пойди-ка сюда. Вот она, родина.
А на Крым похоже, да?
Нет, Шура, не похоже на Крым.
Ну давай, я не могу долго стоять. Давайте.
Спокойно, шеф, спокойно.
Thank you for that, Todd, and for that clip, and Chad and Sarah and Masha and Volodya, welcome, and welcome to all of our guests. And I know we'll have an opportunity to hear about why we saw that and how far that scene is from where you're sitting today. But let me just take a moment and again, join Todd in welcoming you. I'm Bernadine Joselyn, and it's my honor and privilege and a lot of fun to serve with Todd and Chad on the board of directors of the Russian American Business and Culture Council, which has been a long dream in Todd's heart that is now manifest in the world. And one of the gifts of COVID has been in my life, and maybe in some of yours too, is a chance to connect like this in new ways. And who would have thought that we could tonight be together in all our disparate points and touch like this across the internet. Maria and Volodya, whom you will meet here shortly, are having their very first Zoom room experience. They've never been in a virtual meeting like this before, and it's been really one of the benefits I know of technology. And I'm bringing a lot of questions to the conversation tonight about how it is that there's a fiber optic cable in your small village in Altai, but that's part of the problem. That's part of the story we'll hear tonight. So I just did want to say that on behalf of the Russian American Business and Culture Council, our mission is to foster understanding and connections among people. That's what we do together in under Todd's leadership of Minnesota and Russia, and to help people to connect and to build relationships. And that's what we're going to get a chance to do here tonight. It's really exciting to hear directly in conversation voices from friends and colleagues from the Altai Republic, deep in Siberia, in Russia. We're going to hear from each of our four guests are going to make about 5-minute remarks of opening remarks that they've thought about, that they want to share with you about their life and their experience and what they're bringing to the conversation tonight. And we'll introduce them as we go. We do have simultaneous interpretation tonight. And so that's how they're able to participate in that. And so just be mindful of that. After each of the four guests speak, we will have a chance for question and answer. And I'd like to invite you to use the buttons at the bottom of your screen to put a Q&A, if you have a question for the guests, into there. There's also a chat button. And if you guys want to chat as participants among yourselves and share comments, that's welcome. But questions to the panelists, please use the Q&A button. And so with that, I'm going to say just one more word about my experience in the internet connection, and Sarah Lindeman Komorova. So Sarah is a social change agent. She's been an activist in building what back in the day when I was living and working in Russia, we called civil society. And we first met Sarah, was it 1992 or 1993, when she was in Siberia working on trying to help local people seize their own destiny and influence their own lives. And she's still doing that in Siberia. And I found that out when we were planning this event, and in a Zoom room, in walks Sarah Lindemann. And all these many years later, since 1992, Sarah has been living and working on building civil society and other wonderful things in Siberia. And it's just really a privilege, Sarah, to be back in touch with you. And thank you so much for agreeing to step into this conversation with us tonight. And Chad, I see that actually now that you've stepped out of your interpreter role, did you want to say a word before we turn it over to Sarah? I was
Yes.
trying to kind of step into your shoes there a little bit because
No, thank you for covering. Thank you for
hitting.
covering, because it was a hot seat for a moment, thinking I would have to interpret and co-moderate. So thank you for that introduction. And I have taken off the interpreter hat. And I just wanted to say that I'm thinking back to October of 1994, when I was, well, the cutting edge technology was the voicemail, and a university professor said, well, you could send an email. And I thought, why would I want to do that? And you know, you get your perspective and your horizons are broadened by having connections and being able to connect with more people. And to think that back then, you know, you could send an email and it maybe got through. And today we're not just emailing, but we're doing this live virtual telepresence. It's like we're here with each other, and not just in a major city, but in a village. And that's really exciting, especially going back to that first email that I ever sent to a non-university address was to Sarah. And Sarah reminded me that the real Russia is out in the woods in Siberia. So here we are.
So shall I begin?
Please
Please.
do, Sarah.
Okay, remember 1 minute when left, because I'm going to talk fast because there's always a lot to say. And I want to start by thanking Bernadine and Todd and Chad and Lucian and Vladimir, and of course, Masha and Volodya and my husband, but especially for our Americans for initiating this, because I think now more than ever, we need this dialogue and we need to broaden the picture of Russia, the people here, what life is like, bring it reality, because here, as they've already said, 1992. And what I'm convinced of now is that we're all pretty much the same. We want the same things for our children, for our future. We love nature. We want to preserve nature. So this is a great opportunity to bring a little bit more reality and in pursuit of peace, which is sort of what's keeping me here now, to try to foster more dialogue and better understanding between Russians and Americans, because as Bernadine and Chad, those of you in the audience who worked here, maybe in the 90s, that was such a time of optimism between our countries. It was a devastating time for Russia in terms of the largest social, economic, and political transition in history in terms of the speed of it. And it was a very hard time here, but for those of us for an international scene, it was a really optimistic time. And I'd like us to remember that and return to that. So I first came to the Soviet Union in 1988. It was completely by chance. I was working in theater, film, and television, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't know what to do. And I heard about a chance to travel around the Soviet Union training for the Moscow Marathon, drawing attention to, peace and ending world hunger. And I'd run a couple of New York Marathon a couple of times, and I thought this would be a good way to get in shape and a good adventure. So it was 1988, and I arrived, and it was just electric. This was perestroika, everything was changing. And I thought, oh, now this is interesting. This could be fun. So I living in New York, so I went to Columbia University, started studying Russian and political science, Soviet Union, and ended up back in Siberia. Siberia in 1990, returned in 92 with pretty crappy Russian language, but the plan was to stay 4 months and then return and go to graduate school. But if you'll remember, I arrived 5 weeks after the Soviet Union disappeared and Russia appeared. It was a completely different country. And I thought, why would I sit in a classroom studying transition when it's all happening here? And there were all kinds of opportunities. For me, I was teaching at the university, and opportunities to lots of help. Frankly, all these people who were active and wanted to be active were coming to me and asking, how do we do this? How do we create an organization? So I was fortunate at the time and got funding so that I arrived in 1992. By 1993, I got, well, Chad mentioned actually internet. We opened in 1995, the first public access internet in Siberia, perhaps Russia, in our office, our small information office in Novosibirsk. And in spring of 1995, so that's now 26 years ago, USAID gave us $2 million to take our small information center and set up the first civil society development network across Siberia. It's called the Siberian Center. It's still running. A lot of those people are now leaders working on the national level, they just had a big victory last week, lobbying the government to soften some of the requirements for NGOs. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about some of these more restrictive laws. They exist. They're complicated, but what you don't hear is how people, the activists, are engaging in this and dealing with it and are fully capable of promoting civil society in Russia on their own. And I wish more of those stories were told. And that's why I invited, in particular, Masha here, because she was the first activist that I met in Manzhurok here when we moved here 20 years ago.
And that's 5 minutes. Wow. Thank you, Sarah. And a lot to dig into there. Chad, would you like to introduce your friend Yvonne? You maybe have more to say about him than I would.
So Yvonne was, how do you put this? He was a student studying economics, and he went off to the University of Maryland after going through Europe and got his Ph.D. in econometrics at the University of Maryland. But at a time when most young people who had a chance to go abroad to study would stay, he took his education home with him. And that has always been fascinating to me. People who wanted to take skills and come home and make their home a better place. And he has sort of parlayed the econometrics in along with big data and machine learning to make a niche. And he can tell us all about that kind of junction between traditional economics and the future of the technology. That
Thank you. That's actually a very good introduction. I am fascinated that you share this scientific words that probably not all in the field understand, but indeed, I'm probably the one with greatest number of universities attended. I went to 3 universities. I started with University of Novosibirsk, or Novosibirsk State University, as is known, graduated with economics degree, and continued on to study in Europe. And after receiving a master's there, went on to get a PhD at the University of Maryland, College Park. After I finished, that was a big decision where to go and what to do. And indeed, I made an unpopular choice at the time when the outflows were far greater than inflows to Russia. But my wife was there. And also, I saw great opportunities with emerging Russian market economy. So I went back and was in different roles as a consultant, as an entrepreneur. Finally, starting 5 years ago, machine learning data science department at the largest international financial company called CFT, which was founded in Novosibirsk more than, well, actually, it's about like 30 years ago. It's probably the oldest business which survived it all. And 5 years ago, there was a need with a modern then and still very popular data science, which is applying data, automating decision-making with it. And now it's 60 plus people department, which I run. Actually, data science community in Russia is probably an example of this modern development when we have this uniting force called Open Data Science, a community of data scientists, when we meet annually and through Slack application, meet virtually to share knowledge openly, to share code, and foster the field. And that has been a very important boost to data science at CFT, at the company where I work, as well as in Siberia and elsewhere. Of course, we do see quite a drift of brain drain. The usual path of a data scientist is like region, Moscow, and somewhere Europe or the US. I have friends working at Lyft, Google, Facebook. Those are like the top scientists, data scientists, which emerge from the community, which we know and who still share their knowledge with in Russia. And of course, this field is now supported by the university, to which I returned now as a lecturer and read this course. So this is not only something new and an exciting story and the field I'm excited about. Finally, I have also found what I was looking for, this passion, which is in demand everywhere. But I'm mostly excited about the career prospects, which didn't exist when Russia was transitioning. Now my workers, receive quite livable salaries, and they can afford mortgages to get their apartments and have a pretty comfortable lifestyle, which is manifested in so many sort of consumer market economy kind of dream, which probably a lot of Russians had. So looking at them, I say now, oh my gosh, that's what we kind of all wanted and never had when I was thinking what my career path would be. It was mostly like a cloud which into which you walk. Whereas now the guys have it all with mortgages and all mapped up to like maybe 20 years or all their lives, understanding what are the grades they are going through, how they develop as specialists, as managers, and how they can be in top positions as they are now at the company, starting new businesses such as like microloans for migrants that we started a year ago, or taking money transfers across the boards to Europe, Korea, meaning Asia, Africa, and the US as well.
I think and I would just want to add that what's important is they've created opportunities. So if people want to stay in Siberia and have a good career, that's sort of the game changer, you know, that they have the option now to stay here, work in data science, make a good salary, and that's a real game changer in terms of Russia developing.
Right, and I'll finish with saying that why we're here. We started with Manzherok. Manzherok being in our lives as long as we've been together pretty much. You know, we bought the house 20 years ago.
Land, we built the house.
We bought the land, and then we built our own house here where we are now. It's actually the second small house. And we love the place. We moved here, and now, well, due to COVID, we spend most of our time. Indeed, high-speed internet appeared this year, and thus I can work remotely with my team, being in the most beautiful place, which probably we shall show some of the.
We'll after the guests. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you so much for that as well, Ivan. You know, it was really interesting you talked, Sarah, about the opportunity to stay, and I've been fascinated at the parallels between the work that you're doing in rural Siberia and the work that I and others are trying to do in rural America, because it's really about creating opportunity in place that allows people to stay connected. So. Ivan, when you talked about the story about why you're there, I thought that path was going to lead to Maria. Maria, we're going to come to you next, because Sarah, you shared with us that Maria was one of the first activists that you met. And I'm wondering if maybe the breadcrumbs of why you're there connected somehow to Maria's story. But Maria is a poet and a journalist and a native of the village of Manzherok where they're here today. And she's an elected deputy, an elected official in the local council of her village. Masha, thank you so much for being with us tonight, or this morning. It's morning there where you are. You drinking your morning coffee? And we'd love to hear from you about your life, your perspectives, and your world.
Наверное, я начну. Наверное, я начну с того, что в этом году нашему Манзheroку исполняется 165 лет. Такая вот юбилейная дата. Но это с времени первой записи о Манзheroке. А если считать первые раскопки, которые прошли в Манзheroке, в окрестностях Манзheroка, то ему примерно 2-3 тысячи лет. Так что, в общем, как бы не молодой, не очень молодой. Вот. Ну и, конечно, мне очень повезло, что я здесь родилась. Я здесь родилась и прожила всю жизнь. И меня иногда спрашивают, ну почему ты никуда не поехала? А я всегда говорю, хорошо там, где нас нет. И мы жизнь должны сделать лучше там, где мы родились. Но где родился, есть такая поговорка русская, где родился, там пригодился. Я всегда...
That's where you're useful. I always tell people, it doesn't matter where you live. What matters is your inside richness and your desire to make the world a better place. I have 3 children. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. And I have 7 grandchildren. I had different types of jobs. I've lived a long life. I'm 65. Out of those 15 or 20, I studied, and then I worked at many places. There used to be a furniture factory I worked at the furniture factory. Then I worked in school. I have a teaching degree. I graduated from an institute. I'm philologist. I was teaching Russian language and literature. I worked at the newspaper. I'm interested in a lot of things. I always participated in public events. Manzherovka is a small village, but it is more modern. And we have many people with university degrees here. So people have a desire to be more close to the modern world, they participate in public life, and to make the world a better place. Let me tell you a little bit about Manzherok. We have a school here. That's the school that I graduated at one point. We do have a daycare. We have a good clinic. We have a club. It's not that good. Cultural center. We have art school, a good one. We have some stores. We have all of those things. Maybe we don't have some of the things. At present, there is a movement that starts. People want to have a nicer life. They want to interact more. Maybe it is because the internet exists now. We have a good internet connection, and people do keep in touch. People interact. Back in 2007, my son and I, we started a foundation to help out artisans. It was called Art Union. And then my son and I, we opened an informational center in Manzherovka. And that was very interesting because that was the first information center in the Republic. And we wanted people to visit. And I was thinking to myself, when people visit, you walk with them and you talk to them. Well, and people who come, they don't know where to go to get information. So we created that information center. We had internet connection there. Once we had a visit from some people from Moscow, and they were so surprised. They said, we traveled throughout Russia, but we are amazed that there is an information center in a village. We were also amazed because we still didn't know exactly how it would work out. It existed fully for 5 years, but then we were closed for an unknown reason. And then we asked, why did you close? And they said, well, we closed it, that's all. But still, it existed. Then we created 2 newspapers that we were publishing. Our village newspaper and Whale. It was about culture and life in Altai region. So we were publishing the newspaper specifically for tourists. I think we're moving in the right direction. The world in general, I think, is very much similar. People everywhere live in the same way.
Thank you for that, those remarks. That was very heartfelt and appreciated. And make sure that that your son Volodya has a chance too. Volodya, again, thank you for joining us. Volodya was also born and raised in Manzherok and returned there from Novosibirsk to start his own business and be an entrepreneur. And we're just so anxious to hear from you. Thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. I have some notes that I'll be looking at. I was born and raised in Manzherovka. I graduated high school here. Since the school time, I was interested in computers, so I entered a trade school in the city of Gorno-Altaysk, and I graduated with a degree in data processing. When I graduated in 2005, I worked as a system administrator, and at the same time, I went to study at the university, Novosibirsk University. It was a correspondence. I entered School of Economics School of the university. But what I wasn't happy about was the salary when I was working as a system administrator, and I decided to start my own business. My first business was selling souvenirs in Manzherovka. I've been running that business for 15 years now. During these 15 years, I've tried many different things. One of those was running the information center in Manzherovka that we were running for several years. Then I had a business installing point-of-sale systems. The first types of point-of-sale systems and systems that were accepting payments. That's what were installed in Manzherovka. Then I tried my hand at selling real estate. I tried to work in music industry for several years. I was writing and performing music. And at the same time, I was working in the IT area. And I even worked at construction sites. All of that was not bringing me much income, except for during the summertime, the sales of souvenirs. I did not abandon that, and I kept running that business. But still, while I was at school, I dreamed about going to a large city because that's what I saw in the movies, and that's what attracted me. In 2013, I tried it, and what gave me animus was my future wife, who went to university. And nothing was tying me to Manzherovka. I followed her. We lived there in that city for 4 years, but every summer we would come to Manzherovka to work. In Novosibirsk, I also have tried many things. I worked as a system administrator, as a salesperson. I was handing out pamphlets. I never stayed at the same job for a long time. Novosibirsk created a revolution in my head. In Novosibirsk, people go out at night. There are lights everywhere. The stores are beautiful. People dress fashionably. There are skyscrapers and many types of entertainment. There are always new things. I was charged with that energy. At that time, I was taking self-development classes, watching videos about yoga, religion, business development. I was studying English. And I learned many things from YouTube. But then in 2017, my wife graduated from university, and we had a choice to make. What should we do next? There were two options: to stay in the city or to return to the village. I was attracted by the city, but at the same time, I knew that the food chain is designed in the same way. And I could only hope for a job with a salary of $500 if I'm lucky. And it was clear that I lost many years, but I didn't have much experience from just one place. And I had to start from zero and from a rental residence. But in the village, I already had a plot of land that my parents gave me, and I had no other option than to, and I told my partner, let's do what we already know how to do. If we know how to sell souvenirs, let's try producing them. And that's what pushed us to go back to the village. Also, at that time, I was watching a lot of videos from downshifters, and I was worried about ecology. Ecology is great in Manzherovka. So we decided to come back here and open a shop to produce souvenirs. We made a correct decision. That is my most successful project that I've been running now for 4 years. It is fun activity. I tried roles of a seller, manufacturer, programmer. So all of my abilities were useful. And now our souvenirs are ordered from Novosibirsk and from other tourist cities. And with that energy that I had, that I got from the city, I try to maintain high output, but at the same time, I can breathe fresh air. And let me show you my souvenirs, if I can, the ones that we manufacture. This is a napkin holder with a deer. That's the symbol. And what's written here is Altai region. That's for napkins. Большое спасибо, Володя. Есть еще что-то, что вы хотели бы нам показать? Мы хотели бы...
Да. Вот. Это шкатулочка такая для украшений на ножках. Вот она открывается.
Beautiful. And it's made out of cedar, you said. Is that right? A local tree?
Все это из дерева, из кедра, да.
Кедр.
Ну, да, используем специальные станки для резки. Вот сейчас это очень продвигается.
Well, that's a wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Детские игрушки, разные модельки, то есть самолетики, у которых все движется. Дети любят у нас, очень хорошо покупают, воспринимают такую. И все это, что самое главное, из экологически чистого дерева.
And all of that is made from ecologically friendly tree.
Store on the main street of the global.
Это наш культовый трактор МТЗ, который у нас, да, в Беларуси производили.
Yes.
Вот у него все крутится здесь.
И Бернадин говорит, наверное, через интернет можно тоже так говорить, да?
Да, у нас есть, вот мы сейчас запускаем сайт по продаже.
Wonderful. So we can share your site after this show with the people who attended tonight. Wonderful. We had someone would like to see a better sense of where you are, and so our fantastic tech support people are ready to share a map to show where the Altai is, and it's an ethnic republic, I understand. And at the time, back in 1926, there used to be many more ethnic Altai there, and now, as I understand it, it's much less. About what is it? About a third of the residents in the republic are ethnically Altai. Could one of you speak to us a little bit about that?
Они спрашивают про Алтай, то, что...
Владимир, тебе надо переключиться на английский, когда ты...
I also thought maybe I can show, let me show some of the nature. This
Yeah.
is,
Well,
that's
and
the
Sarah, while
cartoon.
you do that, tell the story of the film clip at the beginning. We forgot to tie that
Okay,
in.
so this is the Katun River. It's, see, this is spring. It's melting. And so this river starts to open up now. We're getting spring a little bit earlier now. So yeah, so the clip actually from the film at the Shukshin brothers and sisters, and it's from right in front here. Of course, it was much more wilderness, but that was shot right in front of where our house is. And this is the Katun, the rapids. So lots of rafters. It's a popular place for rafting here in the summer, but you know, it's a village in transition. Lots of, you know, people like us who come and are now, you know, building summer houses, and a huge investment. Sberbank, it's the largest bank in Russia, has built a big ski base. So it's a huge transition. You know, there's good things about it. Economic opportunity for Volodya, it's great because the market, but it's also a challenge. Masha and I are working, and our neighbors are working on, we created an initiative group to try to control that development more, so that balancing economic development with preserving nature and making sure that the villagers have a voice in how that development is happening. So that's what Masha and I are busy doing these days, is trying to make sure that the development here isn't at the cost of
Мы
nature.
хотим удостовериться, что эти изменения не отрицательны.
If I could point out, I mean, I hear Maria mentioned she worked in a furniture factory when she was younger, and now Volodya is producing something more geared towards tourists. Would you say that the transition of the village, is it geared toward tourism, or what are the opportunities for business now in Manzharok besides tourism?
Masha?
Конечно, фабрика, когда была, мы делали стул.
Definitely, when the factory existed, we were producing chairs. The factory was closed in the 90s. And really, there hasn't been any manufacturing for 10 or 15 years. Now, for example, Vladimir is producing these souvenirs. Definitely now everything is targeted towards tourists rather than the local consumers. Perhaps on one hand, it isn't bad. On the other hand, I think there should be manufacturing as well, just like the one we used to have. I'm regretting that it doesn't exist anymore. Perhaps things could have been modernized, improved, and produce also souvenirs on a large scale at the factory. There are smaller shops now, and things are starting to open up again.
Thank you. We have a question here from Chuck Ritchie for you, Yvonne. Chuck is wondering if you could say more about micro loans, about who applies and what's the impact of those loans.
Okay. ZFT, one of the companies of the group called Corona Pay, which is the largest money transfer company like the Western Union, which we of course have, but they are too greedy, charging much, and therefore their business is pretty much gone from the region. I shall say that Russia, like the US, actually in this respect, has a very large labor migrant flows from former Soviet Union republics such as Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and those manual laborers, say, come to Russia, help to build the economy with the jobs that are given to them. And Corona Pay being in this business for tens of years, building up their share. And last year,
Send money back home.
to send, of course, the way money transfer really works here or in Kenya or in Russia is that the main problem of those migrant workers is how to send money back home, how to take what they make back to their families, which they usually have. And of course, it's a lot easier to just walk to a store or a bank and without opening a bank account for like 1%, send their hard earnings back home. And so that their relatives, just with the number which is given, can go again to a bank or local store in the country and get the money. So it should be as easy and effortless. And last year we saw that another sort of issue of the workers is that they don't have any opportunity to borrow money. You know, the banks do not consider them credit worthy. But we do have a wealth of data from money transfer history that they have with us to decide who is a good worker. And actually we do find a lot of very good people who indeed have this need for to borrow some not large sum of money before their paycheck comes and pay us back. This business has been growing. We've been in it for a year. So our focus is people who come to Russia to work. Those are usually citizens of other former Soviet republics, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and business been growing. We like what we see, and we help people. We see that they repay their loans, and therefore we make money, and they have their need to have this bridge, probably, if not a large sum, closed. We also branched out into other kind of products, such as loans for phones. Phone is now sort of a major kind of device for communication, for money transfer, for everything. As you know, the smartphone is leading the revolution for nations which are catching up with the developing world and actually going ahead of it in terms of use and different innovations. And we see that as well. All our business practices are now in the app where most of our people are. Mm-hmm. So I think this will be developing. Business is developing. We are happy with what we see.
Thank you so much for that, Ivan. And I want to just share that Jim Cashel, who's with us tonight, Sarah, says that we should all agree that we're grateful to you for bringing the internet to Siberia. I think that is kind of the story, what we've heard tonight, and to see
public access.
But Jim's also asking, and this kind of relates a bit to what you were just talking, Ivan, you know, that Altai, we saw from the map, borders several other countries, right. Kazakhstan, China, Mongolia. How much commercial or tourist interaction with those countries is there in Altai?
What I wanted, I saw Jim, and hi, Jim. I owe my career to Jim, actually. He was the one who told me about opportunities. So, that I wanted to just sort of maybe locate that we're actually 400, Altai Republic is southern western Siberia. And so we're actually now 450 kilometers. So it's like 300 miles from the Mongol border. So it's very close here. We're very close
Or
to
China.
We're very close to Mongolia. What this is, all those, when people are driving around the world and want to go to Mongolia, they come through the Republic of Altai. And also, just so you get a sense of the size, the entire population of the Republic is only 200,000 people. It's very, very small. And as Bernadine already mentioned, it's become very mixed in terms of Russians and Altai people. The Altai people tend to live closer to the Mongol down south, and Russians tend to be more in the northern part, which is where we are. So that sort of locates us.
Well, tourist-wise,
It's expanding.
it's sort of expanding indeed, but mostly people come from the north. We also have a new airport built so that there is a direct flight from Moscow. So you're all in European part welcome to fly direct, land right here 40 kilometers from where we are, and the road being upgraded so that you can take a taxi now or hire a car and go and see Altai. Altai is a tourist destination, so people are, herders, or there is like indeed very, very sparse population, mostly mountains, rivers, and actually you often, to see the most beautiful parts, have to leave the car and hike or use a horse. As to Mongol tourists or China tourists, well, if they come, probably they'll come from Moscow, not from the back south. So yes, we see a growth of tourists coming from Europe, from European part.
But now, because of COVID, actually, what's happened is because Europe and the West was closed because of COVID, we saw a huge growth in Russians coming to Altai this summer, a huge explosion of it. And it's become now, because of the ski base, it's becoming year round. Before, as Volodya said, it was summer. It was a very short season. Everybody had to make their money in 2 months. Now it looks like it's going year round, and obviously the aspiration is international to attract.
Right, but most of tourists, if you talk about the breakdown, are coming from the neighboring
Siberia.
regions, which are quite developed, which is Tomsk, Kemerovo,
Omsk, Novosibirsk, yeah.
Novosibirsk. Those are the license plates you see most.
And it's for nature, because because it was not developed. There were no factories here. The air, the water, everything is pure and clean, and that's what we have to continue to fight to save. Because actually, this was it was the Altai Republic where the first civics action during the Soviet Union, when they were going to build this dam. They were going to dam the Katun to create an electric station and electricity station. And literally they got, people stood in front of the tractors. They called Moscow. In those days, everything was dictated from Moscow. They said they're standing in front of the tractors, and the Politburo said, stand down. And that was really the beginning of the environmental movement in Russia, which is still.
Wow. Yeah, how the whole place would be different if the dam had been built. The rafting would have been non-existent. And that road that goes down to Mongolia, I've been down there. There's a sign that says 50 kilometers to China, 80 kilometers to Mongolia, and you look like you're on Mars. Just this lunar scape of red rock. So if you're going that way, you're up for an adventure. But I have a question for Volodya. And because the relations between our countries are not at an all-time high, I'd say they're kind of tense right now. I know when I was in Russia in the 90s, there was a different feeling, and then it kind of dropped off. And I'm curious, what are they thinking about Americans right now in Manzhurok in the Altai Republic? How are Americans viewed? Besides Sarah, the news that you get, the people that you talk, what do they say?
Да, в принципе, у простых людей нет какого-то негативного мнения. Что-то в СМИ что-то пишут, говорят, но мы между собой как бы относимся положительно и не видим как бы каких-то, я не знаю, серьезных конфликтов. Это, наверное, больше там дипломатическая какая-то, дипломатические какие-то разговоры или политические, не знаю. Обычные люди, ну, мы хорошо относимся, мы смотрим какие-то видео, там, американские, не знаю, фильмы смотрим, пользуемся Гуглом, Ютубом, разными сервисами, и какой-то конфронтацией. Ну, как с другими странами. То есть, в принципе, обычные люди, они везде одинаковые.
Any other country, everyday people are the same everywhere. You can always find common language with regular people and be friends and interact. If the person is a good person, it doesn't matter where that person lives, in America, in China, or wherever else. That's at least my personal view. And the politicians, they're on their own, and we're here on our own. People in Moscow, they're on their own, and we here are doing our own thing.
I think that's very important to remember, that это важно помнить об этом. So, Maria, would you agree of a different generation? Do you have the same outlook as somebody of an older generation?
Абсолютно та же самая, поэтому мы стали с тех времен.
Mine is exactly the same. From the time that we become friends with Sarah, back from those times, it doesn't matter to me whether the person is from Altai, from China, or from the US, if the person is black, it doesn't matter at all. For me, what's important is that the person is a good person. If the person is a bad person, even if it's a Russian person, I don't interact with that person. I can feel it right away. When the person doesn't know how to smile, the person keeps the mouth closed. Well, and if the person is open-minded, and the politics has been always the same. So.
Thank you for that.
Chad, what do you think? Maybe we should turn it back to Todd. I'm looking at the clock here and we've just about run through our hour. That was a beautiful note to end us on, Maria. Thank you for that. Todd, do you have some final words of wisdom for us?
I don't know about wisdom, but you know, what was interesting as I was listening, especially to Volodya at the end, was the idea of what unites everyone rather than the idea of what divides. Often governments focus upon where we split and where we're angry with each other. The discussion that we've had tonight talks about the idea of the impact of technology, not just here in the United States, but worldwide, and how it's changed the approach of many people in terms of choices. Whether it's good or bad is a separate issue, but it's the idea that technology has basically changed and it's allowed options for what is almost a universal value, which is the search for a happy life, where people choose to live and what they choose to do with their lives. And they've got more options now than they ever had before. And so I want to thank Bernadine and Chad and Sarah and Ivan and Maria and Volodya. And I want to thank again our co-sponsors, the Russian American Business and Culture Council, the Museum of Russian Art, the Siberian Bridges, American Siberian Educational Foundation, the Committee for Foreign Relations, and Global Minnesota. And if we're hoping that you join us, all of these are outstanding organizations that are frankly worth your time and worth your effort in the idea of building understanding and building world relationships. I hope that you're able to join us, and our website for the RABCC is the Russian American Business and Culture Council, which is www.rabcc.org. And so we'll have a number of programs that are upcoming. And thank you very much. We wish you all a good night. And for those of you in Siberia, we wish you a good day. And we're honored that you were able to get up this early in the morning, which truly was an issue. And so спасибо большое. И может быть, до встречи очень скоро. And we hope that soon we'll be able to see you in person.
Спасибо. До
Спасибо.
встречи, до
So
встречи.
thank you very much for coming and have a
Да.
good night.
Спасибо вам
Через минуту.
большое.
Пока.
Спасибо,
Пока.
огромное
Пока.
спасибо. Мы
Thank
очень
you.
рады.
Я тоже, я
Right.
тоже.
До
До
свидания.
свидания.